Welcome to my video on the seed stitch. It's called the seed stitch because the texture looks like an even scattering of seeds. The first thing you need to do is cast on an even number of stitches. You can use any cast on technique you like. The pattern for seed stitch is just 2 rows long, and these 2 rows are repeated over and over. It's basically just an alternating pattern of knit stitch and purl stitch. The very first row starts with a knit stitch. The most important thing to remember is that with any knit stitch, the yarn is at the back, and with any purl stitch, the yarn is towards the front. Now, since this second stitch is a purl, you need to bring the yarn through the middle of the needles to the front before you do the purl stitch. So you do a knit stitch first, with the yarn at the back, you bring the yarn forward through the needles, and then you do a purl stitch. And you simply repeat this alternating pattern of knit stitch and purl stitch for the entire row. Here I have 10 stitches, so it's knit stitch, purl stitch, knit stitch, purl stitch, knit stitch, purl stitch, knit stitch, purl stitch, knit stitch, and purl stitch. So it'll start on a knit stitch and end on a purl stitch. As I have just mentioned, the most important thing to remember is to bring the yarn forward or take the yarn back between the needles between every single stitch. So you have to take the yarn back through the needles every time you're going to knit a stitch, and bring the yarn forward through the needles every time you intend to purl the next stitch. So now you finish your first row, and you can swap the needles between your hands. Now we're starting the second row, which starts with a purl stitch, alternates purl stitch, knit stitch, etc., etc., until it ends on a knit stitch. So first you have to have the yarn towards the front to do the first stitch, which is a purl. You then move the yarn back to do the knit stitch, and so on and so forth all the way down, alternating between knit and purl, making sure that you end on a knit stitch. So now you have finished your second row. So for that row you started on the purl and ended on the knit. And now those 2 rows are the ones that you repeat over and over again until you have the length of seed stitch that you require. So the next row will of course be starting on the knit, so it'll be knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, etc. And then the row after that will be purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, etc. So starting on the purl, ending on the knit, and you'll just keep going, repeating those again and again. If you look closely here, you can already start to see the seed stitch texture emerging, and you can see the little ridges standing up like seeds all over the surface. So here I have knit a few more rows of seed stitch just to give you a better idea of what the seed stitch actually looks like over a larger area of knitting. You can see it kind of gives a raised polka dot type pattern with little ridges of just one stitch standing up evenly all over. It's also a reversible stitch, so it's the same on the front and the back. Thanks very much for watching.